Welcome back to another episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Vilardo, co-founder and CEO of subject.com. You know where to find us. And we are doing a real special event episode today. We are all over the country highlighting the most innovative educators in the space. We went to Michigan. We went to New Mexico. Now, our third stop on the tour, we're in beautiful San Diego, California. We have the Director of Secondary Education at Milpitas Unified, Maurissa Koide. How are you today?
I'm very well.
Welcome to the show. So there's one piece here, though. You are a Trojan, I'm a Bruin, but I do know USC is an incredible school. So congratulations on the doctorate in education.
Thank you.
Incredible accomplishment. And thank you so much for all that you do for your students as well. We always want to start with gratitude because it's educators who are the heroes of society that help young people. And if one student more graduates because of our work, that can be able to be a better citizen, friend, husband, wife, sister. It's a great opportunity. So thank you for that.
Well, I love that because I'm a diehard 49er fan, and they always have an educator of the game. And I always ask my mom to nominate me, and she says, "But you're not a teacher."
So
I'm still an educator.
We got to get you on board. Who's your favorite player?
Fred Warner.
Fred Warner?
Because he's Mexican.
Nice. I'm Colombian. I'm dual citizen. But yeah, it's a good random fact for you with that. So what made you want to get into education? Why are you so passionate about helping young people?
Boy, I've had actually a real roundabout journey to education. So it's not what I thought I was going to do. So I don't know if you want me to tell the full journey.
I do. That's what the listeners do too. Yeah.
So, we actually were just talking about I need a knee replacement. And so very early on, I was an avid dancer. Actually was going and on a journey to become a ballerina. And then at 14, I tore my ACL completely, which made me rethink my journey. And luckily, I had always done well in school. And so my journey then shifted from being a professional dancer to helping others because my physical therapist had such a big impact on me. It took a full year to recover. And so I wanted to go into the medical field. So I actually was pre-med at Columbia University.
I saw that. Incredible. Ivy League.
But that also impacts, I think, my journey in education now because I was not prepared. I'm a product of the public school system. And
where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Eastside San Jose.
Nice. Yeah. I love it. Let's go.
And so actually one of my first, my second teaching job, I went back to the school district that I grew up in. So when I got to Columbia, it was difficult and I never struggled. I was always in AP classes, honors classes, never struggled. School came easy until I got to Columbia, and my private school counterparts were much more prepared than I was. And that was my first kind of struggle and realization that there are some inequities in education. I needed a break after Columbia. It was academically challenging and then came back home. My first real job was managing an office, a medical office, but I was a young 21-year-old fresh out of school, and everyone else in the office who, thought they had deserved the position that I had taken were just not kind. And so it was really tough, and people knew that I was back. So my old principal from middle school and my best friend's mom, who was also a principal, knew I was back, and there was a teacher shortage at the time. And so I got a phone call because two people without, my knowledge had recommended me for a teaching position. And so I fell into teaching, and I taught at a middle school. Middle school is totally my jam. It's not for everyone, but it's my jam. And I taught for 2 years before I went back and I got my master's in public health because I still felt like I wanted to make an impact in people's lives in terms of their health, not realizing that education actually has a big component when it comes to people's quality of life. And so I worked in politics after that. I got that degree at San Francisco State University. I worked for a state assemblyman in the Fremont area in California and worked in health policy. And then realized if I wanted a career in politics, I would have to move to Sacramento, which I wasn't prepared to do after living in New York City for 4 years. And then I didn't want to be a politician because I saw how much time was dedicated to fundraising and campaigning and not, the focus on the actual issues was not the full-time job. It was really what I was doing as a field representative, but I had a master's degree and couldn't afford rent, basically, at that time. So I fell back into teaching and then realized how much of an impact I had on my own community, especially for Latino community that I
Yes,
come
yes.
from. I'm half Mexican, half Japanese. I very much identify with my Mexican side because my Japanese grandparents were in the internment camps during World War II. So I'm very Americanized,
Yeah.
unfortunately, on that side. And so very much identify with my Latina roots and wanted to give back to my community and want students to be able to see themselves. Like we always say, we know that's good for kids. I want them to see themselves in leaders, and being a woman leader and then a Latina leader is important to me. And so after a couple more years in teaching, I realized that was the path for me. And that was the way I would make the biggest impact on my community.
Yeah, we always say you got to dream it to believe it, and you got to be able to see it to dream it. And so I love that you really brought that to perspective. When you talk about some of the impact you made in your community so far, and it's so cool because it's very close to home where you grew up, and I bet it means even more. What are some of the things that you've seen of students today versus even 15 years ago, and how different they are, and what you have to do to innovate and really be able to connect with them?
Okay, so I started teaching, I'm going to age myself, in 2001. So I was 21, so you guys can do the math. But with middle schoolers at that time, cell phone technology was not what it is today. And so even just from when I started teaching, I took maybe a little longer, maybe 4 or 5 years off in between that when I was getting my master's in public health and then working in politics. And then when I came back, social media had not quite taken off, but cell phones and the way that students were communicating with each other had started to make an impact on them. And then I saw how parents were unaware of that.
Yeah.
And that has really shifted, I think, our reality, our society. There's always good and bad when anything new comes into our world. But without the real education for our parents and our families and our kids, I have seen an impact just in the way that students interact socially with each other. And I think COVID-19 exacerbated the way students and even some adults know how to build relationships. And then the social media wave, right? I love TikTok.
I do too. I mean, you can. I'm
Yeah.
all about TikTok. TikTok's great.
It is that, like, okay, 10 seconds, I'm not interested. And so
Yep.
the way we have to innovate as educators to keep students' attention in light of that, we have to do more hands-on. And COVID-19 really kind of set us back. I was a principal at the time, and I thought, okay, COVID-19, this is a perfect opportunity. We're shut down to reset, blow up education. And the opposite happened. We went back, I don't know, 10,000 steps instead of.
Yeah, let's double click on this. I think this is
Yeah.
really well said. And, this is actually a big inspiration around subject because I was getting my MBA at UCLA at the time. And it's all good. I mean, it's funny because you're the Columbia USC, I'm a Penn Bruin. So it's like kind of
We
both
have a
rivals.
similar
So there's
path,
some
yeah.
good connection there. But it was so disappointing, when it turned into Zoom University.
Yeah.
It totally changed overnight. And, that was a really frustration. We're like, did you watch Tiger King or Last Dance?
I watched Tiger King.
Yeah. Last Dance was the Michael Jordan documentary.
Oh, yeah, I did watch it.
Yeah, so like every Sunday night, I'm ready for the Last Dance episodes are coming out, or Tiger King. Oh, Joe Exotic might get out of prison. Like, we're all so pumped about this, and how do we bring that excitement and engagement to education and make it, more fun, more exciting? How do we be able to lean into these pieces? Because you're not going to go watch a silent movie anytime soon. So like we're all looking to new innovation and new things. What have you done over the last 4 years now? I can't believe it's been 4 years since COVID to really readjust the learners, especially how much you mentioned they miss out on the emotional connection. Being able to read people's facial, expressions, being able to make friends with random strangers. Like, what have you done to help these students get a little bit more normalized with uncomfortable situations?
So in my district, and something that I did my dissertation on is restorative practices.
Nice.
And at the root of that is relationship building, right? It's rooted in Indigenous communities and it's about relationships. And I truly believe if you don't have a basis for relationships, you're not going to get anywhere with anyone, right? Children or adults. And that is one thing we've really tried to promote in our district. It's hard changing mindsets because when people hear restorative practices, they think, oh, nothing's happening in terms of behavior response, which is very much the opposite. It's really holding the person who caused harm accountable, but it's really starting with that relationship. So if you have those relationships, you know when someone is triggered, you know when someone is on the verge of, having a breakdown, and you can prevent And that's what I think we need in education. We need to become better practitioners when it comes to knowing our students' mental health state, social emotional learning state, because it goes back to, oh my goodness, Matt Bloom's taxonomy. It's the other pyramid that was also in my dissertation.
Maslow
Yes,
hierarchy.
thank you.
Yes.
Maslow's hierarchy.
We're connecting. We got this.
Maslow's hierarchy. Like if their basic needs are not met, right, and they don't feel that sense of belonging, they're never going to be able to get to that critical thinking or retain anything. And I think that's why we hear all the time, like people aren't going to remember a specific lesson, or students aren't, but they will remember the experience that you put before them.
How you make them feel.
So, yes. And so what we're trying to do is create those experiences within the learning. We've done a lot around project-based learning, or really it's just hands-on and making it authentic, making it real world so that students can see themselves and make those connections. Because if they're not, we just start to hear, why are we learning this? Why do I need to know this?
Yeah. So the big thing we're always trying to learn more about, especially when we have the incredible educators like you on board, and you're so passionate about innovation, you're so passionate about really impacting the community, is how can like ed tech companies, how can other people help support more community engagement? How do we get the community more involved? What can we do better?
That's a really good question, because since I live in secondary land, oftentimes families start to remove themselves from the school setting, and elementary parents and families and caregivers are so hands-on. And then once they get to middle school, it's like, no, they're good. And to some extent, that's good because you want to give students agency, right? But the outreach is important. And I think we almost we've shifted to these virtual meetings, we've shifted to online surveys. But that has also taken away from some of that personal connection and relationship. And so I think by doing that, we've also continued to lose, and maybe even continued to broaden the inequities that exist with some of our marginalized communities, right? Because we can't assume everyone has a cell phone or knows how to use a QR code or those pieces. So I think ed tech companies need to remember that. And how do you help school districts reestablish those personal connections? I think, I would say that's the number one. How can you be innovative in doing that?
Yeah, and I always talk about we're fighting for the kid who may be battling for the one device at the home and sharing a room with two other siblings. And, obviously the world is never going to be fair, but the way that we can make the biggest difference in education as a whole is how do we help that kid who's living in a one-bedroom apartment with 5 people have an opportunity to fight for a chance to get an education? How can we help them? Education is supposed to be the great equalizer. And so what can we do to make that a better opportunity? What do you think education should look like in 15 to 20 years? What would you love to see happen?
I think we need to expose our students to more job-like experiences, because even myself telling you my roundabout way and how how many years would I have gained back, and how many more years would I have in my education career if I had known come high school?
Yeah.
That's what I was meant to do. And I think there are other countries that are starting to do that, but we need to explore that more. And actually in my school district, we are. That's one of the innovative things we're doing. We're not just saying, I feel like a lot of education, we were starting to say college bound, right? You have to be college bound, but you don't now. And there's people who are like, I can't afford college, or I don't want student debt. And so it's about making those pathways available to careers right out of high school also.
What CT pathways are you most excited about?
Well, we're in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. Yeah.
And we know that women and our Black and brown students are not as represented in Silicon Valley. It doesn't mirror our community. And so that's what we're very intentional in. We have an extension campus from our comprehensive high school, Milpitas High School. It's called the Innovation Campus, and it's specifically designed for a STEM pathway, a CTE pathway. And we're also looking into advanced manufacturing, just lots of different things. And we're trying to be intentional on who we're targeting to get there, because we want to see more female representation. We want to see more Black and brown students in the field.
And look at what you're doing, setting an example for all the students you're really helping. And, I think it's incredible the innovative lens that you've brought to education. And I do believe a lot of your holistic experiences, doing the medical management, going in politics, it probably gives you such a really unique perspective that you've helped so many people, and being able to really thread that needle of, I have real world experience, but I've also been able to see how much education has changed. You have a front row seat. What was it like 20 years ago in the classroom?
Unfortunately, we still find it today. It's like rows, right?
So pretty similar. Yeah.
I mean, and a chalkboard.
Oh,
And
I
so
hate the chalkboard, all the
I
scratch.
know we have whiteboards or maybe we have smart boards, but some classrooms you walk in and it's still the teacher or the sage on the stage.
Well, I guess if you like time machines, you can go do that, but
So we want our teachers and educators, the innovative part is to be the facilitators. We don't have to be the all-knowing.
yes.
And there has to be humility and humanity in what we do, right? And we need to model that for our students. Because if we really want to encourage growth mindset, we have to be the first, people to example. So I guess I shouldn't say cut out that I couldn't remember Maslow's hierarchy because
see,
growth mindset.
The growth mindset, we're always looking to get better, and making mistakes is part of getting better. What, we always have these incredible conversations. We really try to be able to bring a sense of gratitude at the beginning and the end. And so one thing I really love when we culminate is to say, is there any teacher or coach, because I know you did a lot of dancing as well, that you would love to shout out that really helped impact the person you've become today?
I'm going to feel emotional, and you've really filled my cup today. So thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for joining us. It's so fun.
Thank you. I would say two people really come to mind. One is my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Ingle, Mrs. Marianne Ingle.
Shout out Mrs. Marianne Ingle.
Yeah. She was in the Mount Pleasant Elementary School District for 30 plus years. Pretty much her entire career was there. And actually her daughter is my best friend now.
Oh, that's amazing.
But so in 6th grade, I could have skipped 6th grade. But
wow.
I had been 16 when I graduated, so my mom said no. So because of that, Mrs. Ingle really set me on this path of leadership and challenged me to do student council. And that was really my pathway. And then she stayed in my life and was my superintendent when I became principal. So it's like she's just been a constant in my life to push me and celebrate me, which not everyone is fortunate to have. And then in my dance career, I would say Kathy Garcia. She's one of my angels in heaven now. But she really helped me to rehabilitate after my ACL injury, which I think was the first time I probably had some mental health issues going on because my whole life, right, was like stopped.
Your identity.
And she really helped me. And so she's one who always says, once a dancer, always a dancer. So even though I can't dance like I used to, I hold her and just that sentiment.
That was beautiful. That was really well said. And thank you for being vulnerable with our fans. And where can we find you on social?
I'm on
LinkedIn. So we will have the LinkedIn link below this video. Click like, click subscribe, YouTube, Spotify. That's where to push everyone. And thank you so much. Another incredible episode on the subject. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.